Hello, and welcome to episode 155 in this series where I am programming an NES game live on Twitch from scratch. Let's get right down to it. Last time we had this broken title screen, but we had the scrolling working properly where it was loading the enemies the way that we wanted. I'm untangling my NES controller here because I had been shifting things around. So we've got the background here loaded, and the ship is loaded. The palette is wrong, but the enemies are loaded and you can destroy them. So that part is working the way that I expected it to. It exported the enemies and all is good there. But as you can see, it's using random kind of tiles here to populate the background. It does not transition from the background to the actual map that we have here. After that area where we have the water, or what's supposed to be the water, it's just junk right now. But it is loading the enemy patterns properly. So we need to look at fixing that. We need to look at fixing the fact that it's not loading the background meta tile properly. And see what we can do to get that working. One thing that I sort of cheated on and did off stream, was it was nothing exciting or glamorous. It was just some changes to refactor the code a little bit because it was getting a little bit... I'll do it later. It was getting a little bit unwieldy because there was just a lot of stuff in this main shooter.asm file. So I added a couple things like this map object check. Let's see, what else did I add? And then these, like load title screen, process pause, and load new game state. These were just kind of lifted and put into subroutines that get called now. If you look at the code here, it's same exact code as we had before, but just basically just moved into this file and called this a subroutine, and then it's returning from the subroutine. So that cut down a little bit of the code in here. There's still a lot, probably too much. There's stuff that I'm sure I could move out, like process title screen, like that could be a subroutine potentially. And all of these, and just kind of whittle them down, but it was just something where I was like, you know, I want to start at least, and then I can always come back to it later. But let's get back to what we were doing. So load level was where we were working on things because it was what was actually loading level data. We had... I thought I called it that. So there's this level data file, and that level data file has the raw information about what it is we're doing in this file. Eventually this will probably just become a binary file with the exception of this stuff. Like this will just be an external file. And then this will probably be a file that gets included separately, and these maybe are all generated automatically. I don't know. It doesn't matter right now because we're just trying to get the basic functionality working, and then we can kind of take a step back and refactor it to make more sense. So the first thing we probably want to do is fix the fact that the background is really just not correct. I'm not sure it looks like it's loading. Let's take a look at the PPU. Looks like it's just loading random tiles. Like it looks like it's a combination of this and this. I couldn't tell you why. Let's take a look at repeat scroll and where it pulls the information about what it's loading. BG loop meta tile. So it's using this meta tile, and I assume that this is probably some random value at this point. So if we open the debugger and say BG loop meta tile, it's just 0. And so then we have that lookup, and lookup is also not set. Interesting. So where does that normally get set? In here. Okay, but right, because we're not doing this because we're not loading an actual level in excuse me, it's not actually setting the lookup properly. Now the lookup right, so the lookup data is sorry for the bump. The lookup table is right now, it's in the map that says, okay, meta tile, 0 is these, it's these tiles, these 4 tiles, if I remember right. And let's see, so that's the map. Total size, right? At the row count, 105, yeah. And then you look at this here, row count. That's the camera position, offset the camera by 1. Yep. Got the attribute meta tile lookup count. Okay, so there are 14 meta tiles, and then the lookup starts here. And then it's saying zeros. There are a few different meta tiles that are actually correct. So the problem is that for repeat scrolling, we kind of have to construct our own lookup because we are repeating a meta tile, and the meta tile is not really defined because it's not defined because there is essentially no I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Like, we have these tiles here that consist of the data. Like, we've got, this is part of the island, and the palettes are wrong, but the the data, the tile data is right. And so we effectively need to kind of set up a lookup for repeat scrolling for the one tile, for the one meta tile that we're gonna actually repeat. And so the reason that it's just repeating this pattern is because it's looking at memory location 0. And is it using FC? FC would be that. So what is it doing with lookup? It is eventually I'll remember how all of this works again, but it's going to take me a little bit of time here. So we're taking the background loop meta tile, which is 0. We're offsetting the lookup. Oh, and it's using the address, which is FCFC. That's weird though, because how would you get that pattern out of that? Oh, and then it's adding a base offset with temp. I mean, it's manipulating it somehow to do this lookup of basically a table that's wrong, right? Like that's the bottom line. I don't know that it really matters why it's getting what it's getting right now. I mean, it might matter when we're trying to figure this out and it's not working. So, all right. So the other issue is the palette is all wrong. Why? Oh, but it's because those tiles are actually using black. All right, so let's start with fixing. Let's start with fixing the meta tile repeats problem, and then we can we can deal with the palette issue. So I guess what we would need to do after this is have whatever tiles are the repeating meta tile, you know, in terms of the tiles that we have here. So let's start with what is the offset? Because we have a certain offset based on the size of the title screen that we have to add. Does it have that calculated? That doesn't. Does it have it calculated properly in the file automatically? No, that says 18. But the title screen takes up a decent chunk of what's there. Just trying to figure out like why I can't see. Thing is all black. What? Oh, that's the color picker. Okay, but there's wonder why the title screen is so messed up. I was ignoring that for a while because it wasn't really important, but it's kind of odd. I mean, like, we have all these colors that we changed, and I kind of assumed that it was going to pop back in. Tile 0E. Oh, you know, it could also be the emulator is not showing the right palette for it, because this is just the character viewer. That's probably what it is. It's just the character viewer, and it doesn't always know what the right palette is to use. So okay, so if I chose this, will it let me choose a different palette? Ah, yeah, okay. So it is okay. So this is the last tile for the title screen, which is 58 in hex, and then we have, this is the first actual tile of the map. So question is, do I use that 58 somewhere, like just hard coding it? I feel like I do. No? So how do I know how big that offset is? Or am I, for some reason, writing it in decimal somewhere instead of hex? Let's see. 88. In here. Okay. So it's hard-coded in here. That's how it knows where to start. Those are the objects. It's the actual map. Now it's need to be loaded. Normalize the map so the values are based on the meta tiles that were loaded into the map rather than based on global set of meta tiles. Right, so the lookup where does it write that? That's the lookup count for 14, and then those are the lookups. And then what's after that? Then it's just all. Oh, okay. So that's all the map data. So, is it a separate file? That sounds familiar. Yeah, like I said, it's been a while since I've looked at this, so I don't remember exactly how this part works. I feel like I say that a lot, but it's true. After 2 years of not really being in this code, it's hard to remember exactly how these pieces fit together. So here's the meta tile characters. And that's the meta tiles. And the palette. The filler tile. Then we write out the actual meta tiles for the character data. Is there a lookup that we are, like a mapping that's done? Because, so for example, that's weird that that is all 0. And then these look like they're just offsets to get the meta tiles, right? Because that's, maybe not. Maybe we're not quite there yet. And this is, normalize the map so that its values are not based on meta tiles that were loaded, but based on the global set, right? Because there's just the one set of meta tiles that's used for everything. So yeah, and then when it writes the actual map out, yeah, it's doing this convert. Well, it's doing that to the small map buffer. Does that actually get mapped? It's broken. Like this is converting it from the UN16 to character because they're just single bytes when we kind of boil them down to the map for game. But why is this looking wrong? I mean, they're not these values. These values are too high. So that part is okay. Meta tile 2, you know, is whatever it is, but like it should be mapping that to an actual global meta tile placement, and I don't know. That was working when the maps were, when we were loading a standard map. So like if I go to if I just comment this out, right, and process it like it's supposed to be just a normal map for a second. Let's see what this does. Okay. So that loaded. I don't know if the colors are going to be right for the little island piece that is supposed to be on the left. But also, you know what? We're not seeing the little wavelets either. I mean, it's updating. That's updating way more than it should be. That should only be updating the top here. So, let's see. Let's take a look at this because obviously something is not loading properly. That's level data. Here's load level. All right, so it should be just be going to load standard map. Let's see what it does. A is 1. So sets the background mode. Alright, so that's the first problem. It says row count is 1. Oh. Yeah, well, doing something that dumb would cause that problem. So we gotta increment Y, otherwise it's going to... Yeah, we gotta increment Y, otherwise when we actually go into... Although, wait a minute, this is the wrong spot. Unloading tiles. We're not incrementing Y. We should be. Why? Oh, I guess I'm being extra cautious there, which, whatever. It's not really even necessary, but okay. So load standard map. We got to increment Y. That's the problem there. That should fix. Oops. That should fix what we're seeing here because it wasn't going past the row count. Sorry, the map type and the data there to get the correct row count. So then that meant that the map wasn't loading properly. That was just a dumb mistake. But I hadn't tested that part of the code yet, so not too surprising that it had a problem. No. Oh, okay. So that's the other problem. I didn't see I didn't see that. Okay, so increment row mem then. Let's increment row mem and then what is it? Does that set the flag properly? If row mem is on the boundary, if it's 255, if it's 255 and we increment it, we gotta increment row mem plus 1. And I don't remember if increment does that. So we'll just check it here. Rather than rebuild the game and check it there, this is a little bit easier. Load A, FF, store A into 0, increment 0, and then we'll see if the carry flag is set. We would probably want to clear that. Let's see. So the 0 flag is set, but the carry flag is not. So load A 0, add carry 1. So this is what we should be seeing is this goes from 0 to 1. Which it does in this case, but when you increment it using inc, it doesn't. That's what I thought. I was pretty sure I remember that being the case. So what we got to do is load a row mem, clear the carry, load a, add carry, 1, branch if carry is clear. So if we weren't at 255, then we don't care to do this. Otherwise, we need to increment row mem plus 1. And then regardless, we want to store, let's do this, store a row mem. Got to remember to store it. If you don't store it, it didn't happen. Okay. That's the thing that's nice about inc, is that you don't have to load it in increment, but then obviously we don't get that carry flag set. We load it, we add, store it. So remem is now has BB in it. Carry is clear, so we don't have to do rowmem plus 1. Set the background mode load Y with 0, and then rowmem is 9ABB, which means we load A with the max rows value. If we look at our file, 69 hex is indeed the right value, so that should yield a better result. Aha! Okay, so we actually have our background now correctly the way we're supposed to. There is the island, although it is off to the... It is off a little bit. That's weird. I don't know why that is. It is... Is it shifted? Is that closer to the edge than it should be? It's got like a whole extra meta tile over here. I wonder if everything is just off. By a meta tile or a little bit. Okay. Something is a little bit off there, but it's excuse me, it's way better than it was. My guess is there's something in... Oh, did it? Is it somehow reading? Maybe miscalculating based on... Yeah, it could just be based on the fact that we have that extra byte there. I'm not too concerned about that right now. The main thing I was concerned about was just double checking that this is actually loading a reasonable approximation of the way this is supposed to be working, and it is. You know, the fact that it's not 100% correct is okay, but it's approximately what it's supposed to look like. Good enough for now. So that means the offsets here, or the values here, are correct. Which means that the lookup that it has is technically correct. Get the attribute meta tile lookup count. So let's go back and look at this for a second, because I want to make sure that I'm reading these files correctly. What did that say? That's the attribute lookup. No, don't search for regular expressions. Just search for the dang text. Okay. But where are you storing into that? Store a lookup. That gets it there. Okay. This is what I was looking for. So increment Y, transfer Y to A, clear carry, add. Calculate where the lookup data starts based on row mem. Add y to row mem and store an additional 1 on carry in lookup plus 1. Add y to the... Okay. Because it is after it looped through, after it looked up the information here. Okay, so there's palette data first. How come I didn't see that in the export? Or did I just miss it because I just missed it? So that's the height. Oh yeah, metatile attribute count. Metatile attribute lookup. Then the map palette, which is 16 bytes after that. So that's 1 byte, and then that's however many it is. So that's 14. Okay, so that's the attribute bytes. That's the 14 here, and then another 16 for the palette. That seems... okay. And then another lookup count. And then these are the lookups themselves. Yeah, that seems fine. Just not remembering all the data here. And then we have this 0 through whatever that is that I wrote out as it is just looping. And that's literally just... well, that's just 4 bytes. How does this piece together, though? Map type, load the standard map. The row count, multiply the row count to get where the camera starts. Load the row memory. We're doing another increment to it here. We're incrementing it here as well. To skip. To get past the height of the thing. The number of rows. So then get the attribute metatile lookup count. Okay, that's what I thought that was. We put that in temp. We add 1 to it, and then load the level memory. Oh, but this... that level mem... that's not 100% correct because of the extra bytes now here too. we're going to do the same thing here. Should just make a macro for this. Oops. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll look at how to do that, because I've never done it. I think it's probably useful at this point. We have these 16-bit adds that we're doing. Let's take a quick look, because CA65 macro. Okay, so we can do that sort of thing. Let's, I don't know, we'll put it in here for now. We'll say macro. I mean, we're literally going to call it, do a similar thing to this. It's funny, they have same sort of example. So we're going to do clear carry. Yeah, load a address, add carry 1, right? It's just the same. Yeah, this is exactly what we're doing in our other code. Branch carry if clear, otherwise increment address plus 1, and then that. Let's see, they have, how are they doing it? Oh, they're just doing load a address plus 1, add carry 0, y, store a, load a, add carry. Oh, if the carry is set, does that behave differently? It does, but have I been doing this inefficiently this whole time? I'm gonna not format it correctly for me. So we'll just use 0 and 1. So obviously that didn't do anything in terms of what I was expecting to see, but if I load a ff and store that into 0, and then just load a 1. Don't mind the messy assembler. So it did increment. Huh, that's interesting. So that must be a side effect of add with carry, where the carry is set, that it actually, so I don't even have to do that. I can just do, well, I learned something today. Just add carry 0, and if the carry is set, it's going to add 1 to that, and then we store that back into adder plus 1. All right, so then what we were doing here was basically what we're doing here. So we say inc16, which one was that? That was romem. Inc16 romem. Is that right? Is that how you call that? And then inc16 level mem. Let's see how that works. Symbol adder undefined 65. Oh. typo. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so in theory, that should then be the same. And then it also fixed the problem with the level mem being off by 1, because that should be incremented as well, because it should start at the beginning of the level data, not the beginning of not the beginning where we have that extra byte that we added. So let's see. So it's 9ADE. Oh, so there's the macro, and you can actually see it doing it. And level mem is now 9ADF. Okay, cool. So the colors are wrong. But the alignment is fixed now. Cool, great. So that is good. And we learned how to do macros. Wonder if we're doing, I'm sure we must be doing that in other places too. Let me turn this off and close that and close that. And just let this run in the background. Curious to see just, yeah, so like you can see, like we're at this add to score. Oh, this is actually even larger, but the way that I'm doing this here with the branch carry clear, you don't have to do it. Oh, the palette's fixed again. You don't have to do it the way that I'm doing it, looks like. So that'll be something to play around with later. So yeah, so that's our macro to do that now. And it's a lot more compact to write. This, let's add a comment so that I'm not coming back and going, why are we doing this? That's dumb. And then I break it by removing that. Row mem and level mem have to be incremented so that they do not include the 1 byte that indicates this is a normal scrolling portion of the map. Okay. That's good. So that fixes that, and I feel more confident in the way that that's working. Now, still a little bit. Oh, right. So the reason we were looking at that was because I wanted to look at how the lookup data was being determined here. Hopefully we'll get this going relatively, or fixed relatively soon. I'd like to not be too long tonight because I've got to get up early to go into the office tomorrow. That's where lookup is being used. So let's find. So we clear lookup here. Let's load the level and see what it does. This is all good. So we're clearing it. So let's see, row mem right now is, it's pointing to 9AF0. Which is the beginning of the actual row data for the map, it looks like, which makes sense. Level data, or level mem, let's see where that is. Level mem is pointing to 9AF4. Oh, really? 9AF4. That is... Wait a second. N 9AF. No, 9AF4. That should be pointing right at the beginning of the data here, right? That was what we just literally did. Like right at the very beginning of the map. So why 9ADF? Why does that get changed? 9ADF. It's here. All data is, you start with 1 and then you have 69 after that in hex. So what the heck is this? What am I missing? 9A CA. Oh, level mem. Well, okay, wait a minute. So 9ACA. That's the actual beginning of the level. And then level mem. Oh, it added, okay. It adds 15 to skip past all that stuff. That's why that's off by that. So level mem, I thought that might have been the case, but I couldn't remember. So 15 is what, 21? Because it's one, that's hex. So 21 bytes past that, that's 9ADF. 9ADF. So, okay, so the beginning of the level is here, and then that is here. And level mem, that is pointing to the actual row data. Is that what it's saying? Pointer to the actual map data. Okay. So we have to increment all those by 1 because everything is off by 1 based on the fact that the first byte is actually the type. And then we read the row mem, which gives us our max rows. So then where are we messing with the lookup? The lookup data based on row mem. Right. So row mem has not been incremented yet, other than, oh, it has. Calculate the camera position. And then we do another 16-bit add to it here. We can fix this just for the sake of skip camera screen adjustment. Might as well. Right? I mean, we wrote this macro, so here it is. So now get the attribute metatile lookup, and then add the variable length lookup to the level memory offset, right? So that tells it where that will get moved to. And then is this another increment? Yeah, this is another inc 16 of row mem. then store the attribute lookup information there, and then we do it again. Oh no, in this case we add temp. Were we doing that there? No, this was a legitimate just increment 1. So this is incrementing, but we can use the same trick here, right? We can load A with row mem +1 and then add carry 0 and then just store row mem +1. So that fixes that, and that's cleaner. Clear the PPU and set up the palette information. So now we're just reading palette information. Okay, so then once we were done with that palette information for the background palette and the sprite palette loop, then we're actually seeking into the lookup by adding Y to row mem to set the lookup location properly. This is fine. All right, so let's so that's where we're going to see where the lookup table actually is, and I want to see what the data is in there. So once we get to here, lookup will have the address 9AFB. So here's the lookup, and it's just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's just a linear lookup of the meta tiles. Probably because this is the only map we have right now, and it's just using all the meta tiles. Well, not probably, definitely, because this is literally the only map we have with actual maps. So it's saying, okay, it's basically a 1-to-1 mapping. 0 is to 0, 1 is to 1, 2 is to 2, 3 is to 3, etc. And we wouldn't encounter any other meta tiles outside of that. You could see where in your map you might have, maybe that's why it's not actually doing any conversion in the export tool, because it didn't matter at the time. But you could see where maybe, you know, this 2 is actually, you know, F1 or something like that, where it's another meta tile that we're using and it's shared between maps, right? So that said, when you do the lookup there, it's just looking up into the meta tile data. And the meta tile data is, I believe, just another lookup of like, okay, meta tile 1 is meta tile 1 is regular tiles, you know, 59, 58, 62, 63. But let's just double check that. I'm pretty sure that's right. Yeah. And you can see it starts at 59 because we have that offset for the title screen. Okay. So what I need to do is a basic, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'm sorry this took so long, but it really was down to trying to remember how all of this kind of came together. So what we probably want to do is just use essentially like a fake lookup. And the fake lookup will map to a particular meta tile. So like, come on, you can do this. Except it should be just that. This is the meta tile to use in the background scrolling. So what it's going to do is it's going to use that as the meta tile to use, which it's then going to use to look up in here, and it's going to find these tiles and then just use that as the background scrolling tiles, which is essentially what we were doing in the code anyway. The only difference is that it was not, right now we're not actually storing anything into the background scrolling. There's a variable that's used for background scrolling, and we're not actually setting that to anything. I don't know if that's the only problem that we're encountering, but we will get there in a second. So this will give us our Y camera position. Store that there. Scroll, store background mode. Increment Y, load the Y position. Increment Y, load Y position. Okay, so then this is that. And what we want to do is increment Y and load ROMEM Y and store that into, what is it called? Repeat scroll mode. It is background loop meta tile, BG loop meta tile. Yeah. I don't think this will just make it work, but we're closer to what it should be, basically. So part of the problem, okay, that's actually really good. So part of the problem is that we didn't load any of the palette. So it's all just this color, I believe. Yeah. Cool. Okay, that's really good though, because that means we got it to do what I wanted it to do. You can see the sprite palettes are wrong, but that's okay too. All of that comes from, right now that's all coming from the map file, the main map file, and that is problematic because obviously it will not load those if we do a repeat scroll. So we got to figure out what the plan is. Like, do we have to replicate the beginnings of the header of the map file in order for that to work? I don't know. But what I do know is that I want to fix this so that when it's done with the repeat scroll mode, instead of just, it is supposed to go to load the map, but it loads the map based on just the beginning of the map. And the issue with that is that obviously that doesn't work because it just repeats the load of the repeat scrolling mode. So what we really need is something to tell it, like, okay, where it should start. Like, where is the next place it should start reading, instead of just at the level that you're telling it to use. I mean, I guess you could. Well, no, because we're telling it, like, you know, load map 1, which is fine, but it's like part 2 of map 1. So Okay. So what I'm going to do is if you pass param2, and by pass I mean it's like set to a value, right? It's not anything more than that. So it's going to do this, and then what we need to do is load A with param2. No. Actually, we don't need to do this here just because we're going to have to do it later when we increment. So load a romem, add with carry, clear carry, add with carry param2, which might be 0, it might be something else, that's fine. Store that into romem. This could probably be a macro too, in theory, but I don't want to go crazy doing that right now. So let's use store in romem, and then add load a romem +1, add carry 0, store it into romem +1, and that gives us what we're looking for romem. We can store that into, was it level mem +1? Was that, did I remember that right? I think that's what it was. Yeah, level mem +1. We need to store that into level mem. So we were storing it here. Now we're storing it here because there's no point in storing it twice when we have to offset the value by the romem, param2. Now the one thing we have to change is when we leave this section, we want to transfer y to a and store that into param2, I believe, because that is our offset. And so when we call load level, then let's do this. Load a 0, store a param2, so there is no offset. But then we want to load param2 and store it into next level offset, which doesn't exist right now. And it should just be a 1 byte. Of course, I didn't spell that right. All right, and then when we process repeat scroll mode, when we go to actually load the level, right, it should just be process repeat scroll mode. Where does it switch to standard map? Screen mem. Okay. What am I missing? Swap to map mode. So swap, yeah. Oh, wait. That's the only, what? That's the only place it calls. Oh, right, because I moved that out of here. Also, what the hell is up with this? I don't know where my brain was there. Okay. So that calls this in loading the new game state, but we want to load param2 and then store it into next level. Come on, level offset. So for this, we actually store it into param2. Once repeat scroll is done. I mean, technically, I think we want to do that for when we're switching to repeat scroll mode also, but less concerned about that right now. Oops. All right, so let's see what we got here. Did that build? Okay. I don't need that extra memory window. Reload the ROM. I'm not worried about the palette situation still. Like I said, that's more an issue of the way that the palette information is stored right now. Like, you know, thinking back on this now, I think I was not really processing how, or I wasn't really thinking about too much how the how these things are kind of separate with the two different modes, but that's okay. One thing I want to do is in the debugger put a breakpoint here, make sure it actually gets to it. We're actually running, we're seeing the progress here, cycling through. Thing is that we don't oh, it hit the breakpoint. Okay, just impatient. So it resets the enemy index. It swaps to background map mode to the background mode to regular map mode. It resets all this stuff, and it loads the offset. So the offset is at 3 bytes currently. Let me make sure that we don't have some sort of off byte. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So it should be 4. Boo. Can I change that? Will let me. That's what it should be. Oh, it did let me do that. Cool. So let's see how that goes. It loaded the palettes. Looks like it's actually working. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's fix that problem. So it's just that obviously Y should have been incremented one more time. And then, yeah. All right, let's reload this ROM. And run. We'll run in high speed. Oh wait, I'm not gonna be able to dodge the enemies at high speed. Could try shooting them, I guess. Or, you know, like a shooter. I don't know why that bullet is getting stuck. We'll have to figure out what's going on there. Just a weird bug. All right, so now we're just waiting for this to reach the point where the repeat scroll count is done, and there is a regular map. Now, it looks like it pops in because the palette is loaded in at that point. But there is the map. That's pretty cool. I noticed the sprite palette is not working. I wonder what. What is? Oh, it's the attribute buffer. Okay. And then what is this? Attribute mode. Okay. Oh, and then the palette swap back in. And then there's our map. So obviously there's a problem with the way that the camera and the tile stuff is not matching up, because it didn't, the first time through we didn't see the updates happening on the bottom. They were happening just slightly off screen. So you can see what's going to happen is now once we go around, we get the background like this is the way it was working before with the, before this update. And interesting that it does it that way. So there's still stuff to fix, but overall, this is actually pretty close to... It's definitely a lot closer than it was. Got to fix the palette problems. Love to know why that first projectile gets stuck like that. Oh, it could be the same problem as we're having in the with the entities, where it wasn't clearing out the sprite, it was just clearing out the entity. And then as a result, there, you didn't get a clean update to the PPU. This is a pretty long map to have nothing else after this initial set of bad guys, but yeah, but then it loads in the palette and you get the background loading correctly, and the scrolling is looking actually pretty good in terms of it updating. Yeah, you can see it's updating right at the edge of the camera, which is what it's supposed to do. So it seems like we run into a problem when we switched from this to the repeat scroll mode. That was forced. That's this, which is problem. Well, this is updating okay. Maybe that's having a problem because of some other issue, but yeah, overall, that's not bad. I mean, spent a lot of time kind of trying to figure out how all of this stuff fits together again, because it's been a while since I had looked at that code. But I think this is good for now. Just like I said, I've got to be up early in the morning tomorrow, so I don't want to be too long. This was already what? This is about an hour and 20 minutes of recording, so not one of my longer ones, but I think that's okay. The main thing, so now that we have that working, we have to figure out how we can get the palettes to work properly. And then what else? What else needs to be done for the background scrolling mode? Because what's cool is that that's actually now we can do things like change camera speeds and dynamically change palettes because it's using that object file that it gets exported just like with a standard map. But that's a much smaller amount of data. I mean, obviously, if you have a lot of stuff, it's going to be a pretty big file. But if you have just a small number of objects, then it's got a lot of space saving there. So yeah, so like we can do a lot of stuff with that, and yeah, the main thing is just the palette is totally wrong on loading, and it's got this junk stuff. We probably need to repeat scroll, clear out the background, as well as just updating the background as you're scrolling. And we'll start from there. We'll start from clearing out the background on startup, and then also figuring out what we're going to do with palettes and like really getting that under control to understand what our plan is there, because it's a little bit of a mess right now. But that's okay as long as we can figure something out. And then once that's done, we can start investigating how to get the map mode to scroll past the end and go back to a repeat scrolling. Like, we should be able to alternate back and forth without any issue. But obviously it's having some sort of problem with that. Part of it is it's not even looking at the real map data, which obviously is not correct. So we need to fix that. But oh wait, why is it why are that enemy stuck? That enemy is stuck. That's pretty funny. So that entity is not despawning. It's just cycling forever. I know why that would be, but that's still pretty funny. Anyway, but like this worked fine. That's what I wanted it to be able to do. So now we can have our sections of, you know, flying over the water for long stretches, and then oh, actually, you know what? Like, we could even try that. Let's see. Oh, I should have left that open. Where is the... I want to look at what the meta tile most likely is for the background with the little wavelet. And we can have that repeat. Just for fun. Just to kind of prove out that this is working. Is it this? Oh, it's this. So what is that? That's like 1, 2, 3. So let's switch in the data that our repeat meta tile is 3. Now that should make them all use that one meta tile with the little wavelet. But of course the palette is wrong. So I don't know. Oh, that's fun. Whoa, that's not even close. What? How did I... How did that result in that? That is bizarre. It was 1 before. Huh. Repeat. I had to change one more thing, right? And find this. Process repeat scroll mode. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Oh no, it's for some reason I'm like, wait, is this using an address? But it's not. It doesn't matter. Repeat scroll mode. Yeah. Oh, I'm in the wrong file. Process repeat scroll mode. metatile flag, BG metatile lookup, load A, the lookup with Y is, this should just be that is bizarre. BG metatile. What? Oh, BG lookup metatile. BG lookup metatile. BG loop metatile. That is the address. Three. It is 3. So that is weird. Why? Oh, because the lookup. Oh. Oh, yeah. Wait. Why did I do that? I see what I did now. It's so it's saying to look up. It's saying to look up based on this value being 3, but then the lookup address isn't even set, which is why it's getting weird data. So load level. What I meant to do is this should really just be that, and then what I wanted to actually do was, where do we ever set lookup here? We don't. So what I actually wanted to do is just set lookup to where ROMEM is right now. So load a ROMEM, store a level, no, lookup. I just need to clear carry, add carry, transfer Y to A, clear carry, add carry, lookup, and then store that into lookup, and then load a lookup +1, which is not set. Well, let's do this. Load a ROMEM +1 and add carry 0, and then store into ROMEM +1. No. Lookup +1. Right. This is our. This is always 0 because our lookup consists of 1 entry every time. And then set the address for lookup to ROMEM +Y, because that's where our offset tile lives. Or no, what is it called? It's a metatile lookup lives. Right, so we're loading ROMEM, we're storing it into lookup, then we're transferring Y to A because we're going to use that to add to lookup. So we're clearing the carry, adding lookup to it, we're going to store the result, and then this is not that work? Yeah, load A with that, and then add this, right? That's how that. Yeah, the load A is okay. Sorry, suddenly had oh, does the load of A clear the carry? But I didn't think it did. It doesn't. So add that, then store that to lookup +1, and then we're good there. And then we're yeah, then this is not necessary at all. So we're always using 0, and then this can be like 3. Yeah, okay. Because the lookup is right. Okay, cool. So that should fix that. That's why we were getting that weird behavior, because it was doing not so normal things. So, yeah, okay. It's still behaving a little weirdly, but it is closer. That's weird. Where's... And that thing got stuck again. So lookup is at 65. 65. So it's 9B06. 9B06. And that's got our value of 3. So BG loop meta tile is 0. So it should just go right to that and grab the value 3. So I'm not sure why this is doing anything weird. Process repeat scroll mode. Okay. So when we do the lookup is at there. Y is 0. So it gets a value of 3, and then we shift it, and then that's our base offset, which is 12, and then BG tile, clear carry add. What does this do? Even looking those meta tiles, what is this doing? Shifts it by 2, so multiplies by 4, and then it puts that as our offset. And then BG tile is, the value is 2. What is BG tile? Oh, is that which of the tiles we're supposed to be updating? Oh. We're not even... Ugh. So we're not even doing the real lookup here. That's why this is behaving that way. Okay, at least that makes sense. The behavior is still wrong, but I understand now that it is just faking it, and so the lookup is kind of garbage. Why that causes the scrolling to be broken is sort of... Or, yeah, why does that make the scrolling behave that way? That's the only thing that I don't understand, is like the scrolling or the updates happening in the wrong spot of the screen is weird. Maybe it was always broken and I didn't notice because it was a solid color. That's entirely possible. All right. I mean, I already said I wanted to stop, so that's something for next time. Won't this be a problem on PAL systems? Why would that be a problem on PAL systems? Because it's doing it right out of view on of the screen, and that's not even out of view in terms of the it's not even including the, what's it called, the overscan. Where is the overscan in the emulation settings? So there's no overscan right now. I mean, if you're running it on like a real CRT, the overscan is so far above it that it wouldn't matter. The problem we're running into with the scanning like here is that there's actually an actual bug with the game. But as far as that being a problem with PAL specifically, I mean, I'd be curious to hear why that would be, but I don't think I've ever heard of anything related to that. Now, that's not to say that it's not actually a problem, but yeah, news to me. These updates that you're seeing here are more a symptom of something else going on with the repeat scroll functionality that's somehow updating maybe the attribute table incorrectly. That is probably what's happening. In fact, we can confirm that by looking at the name table, turning off and turning on attribute updates. Oops. Oh man, come back here. Yeah, so you can see the attribute updates are actually happening in the wrong spots. So they should be happening along the leading edge of the scrolling. But they're happening kind of not evenly and also at the wrong time. And then what you'll see when it switches to the normal scrolling is that those attribute updates should be happening just at the top, like just off screen as we're scrolling through. Got to figure out how to prevent. I mean, in this case, the player is dead, so it wouldn't matter. But yeah, so now you can see like all of that is happening just off screen, which is what I would expect to see. So that is fine. Actually, let's go back for a second here. Not actually even seeing any attribute updates right now with the scrolling. So it could just be a bug in the repeat scroll mode where it's messing with the attributes in a way that is causing that problem. Because, like I said, it was a solid color before. I never noticed the difference. Yeah. So that'll be something for next time to figure out why that's happening. But Dr. Ozerix, if you have something specific about PAL systems that I'm not aware of, let me know. I'd be happy to look into that and figure out what's going on and why that might be a problem. So, yeah. So that's it for tonight. It's kind of a more of me trying to figure out what the code was than coding, I feel like, but we got a good milestone. It actually fixed the repeat scrolling, being able to transition, being able to start with repeat scrolling and transitioning into the main map, and now we just gotta figure out how to fix the repeat scrolling attribute updates and the palette being wrong. And then we'll go from there. I mean, there's still a lot to do because obviously the level data right now, I'm just hand coding that because I'm trying to figure out like what the format should be rather than putting that into the export tool first to save a little bit of time. So yeah, hopefully Thursday, excuse me, at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, I'll resume. But as always, thank you for joining me here. If you want to reach me online for questions or just to chat, I am at Clearvis on Twitter. You can also email me at zelius@gmail.com. That's Xelius. I am on Video Game Sage as Xelius Zelius. I am on Discord in general as Clearvis, Clearvus, same as my Twitch channel and my Twitter handle. I do have a Patreon if you're interested in doing something like that. You get to talk to other people who were interested enough that they wanted to support the project and get access to some of the source code ahead of time. I do plan on dumping some relevant materials to the game in the Patreon and the Discord relatively soon related to the origin of Cerulean Ascension. And where the name came from and some other things there. But, you know, that's all optional. Eventually that information will be released anyway. This is just kind of like you get early access. So totally unnecessary. I'm sure if you even ask me nicely, I might tell you because it's really just, you know, just part of what's going on. So, feel free to add comments and ask questions on the recording on YouTube, and I will see you Thursday. Thanks for stopping by.